Why don't you give me a sign?
This is Corinna Jane.
The leaves are trailing along that shore. It's not your problem, it's mine.
With her brand new single, Give Me a Sign.
Me to your door while the world still spins.
As featured on BBC Introducing.
It's just the way it's gotta be. Give me a sign about the things that we don't know. Why don't you give me a sign?
Corinna Jane, Give Me a Sign. Out now.
It's not your problem, it's mine.
Big day.
Big day. I want you to know that whatever happens, we're going to celebrate. And I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sophia Jessica, and welcome to the Fan Carpet.
So welcome. It's a pleasure to speak to you all today. So I'll just jump straight in. So if we go back to the beginning, was there a defining moment for you three to get into the film industry?
Ooh, that's a big question. Not really. I think personally for me, I just always loved films ever since when I was growing up. I watched a lot of films and was always interested, I guess, in storytelling. So it seemed kind of a bit of a no-brainer when I was older to pursue film as a career. I don't remember there being really a particular moment where I was like, that's what I have to do. In many ways, I'm sort of disappointed by that. That would be kind of cool, but it's just always been there. Yeah.
Cool. Have you girls?
Okay. I think it almost stemmed from just from at school, just drama, and then just also being like an avid film watcher. That I kind of then went on to go to film school. It was just what I was really interested in pursuing from quite a young age, as what I wanted to do. And I remember, I don't know if anyone else did this at school, where they were like, you should do one of those tests where you see what your job should be. Did anyone else do that?
Yeah, I've done those.
And I got like zookeeper, which in hindsight, I actually think I would have been quite good at. But instead, I kind of stuck with my own instinct.
Mine was working with disabled people, I seem to remember, and which was a bit of a wild card suggestion. I thought, I don't know what I had put in that suddenly suggested that I would be a suitable candidate for that important job.
Happy for empathy and just general,
I guess.
Yeah, I can see you being great with lots of different kinds of people.
So I got into the industry, I think the same way. I think it kind of is the same for everyone, is the fact of you just kind of fall in love with it. I kind of always used to watch it when TV when you're a child, and you're just kind of pointing out the screen and telling my parents, I want to do that. And it took them a long time to realise I didn't want to become a Teletubby, I wanted to be on the screen acting. So once they realised that the difference, I think they were kind of very supportive with it. But yeah.
That's so great. They were just thinking you just were dying to join the Teletubby gang. Oh, amazing.
Obviously, wouldn't you?
So good.
Which colour would you be?
I think I was Poe, the little red one.
Yeah.
What about you guys? What Teletubby would you be?
The one with the handbag, obviously. I'm actually a bit worried how quickly I answered that question. I've been waiting to be asked that question my entire life, obviously.
I'm sure.
Guys, there's 4 of us here now. We could do the remake. How it all began.
Yes, finally.
Marc, you've got Dipsy or Tinky Winky, mate. You choose.
One of them's yellow, right?
No, Lala's taken.
Oh, okay. All right.
You
I
were
don't
like,
know.
this is not where this interview was going.
No, it wasn't. But hey, you just go with it. All right. So, what was it about sorority that enticed you to get involved? Obviously, James, you wrote it and directed it, but I mean, for you girls, what was it?
Well, James came to me with the script fairly early on. We were, we'd met and we were due to work together, and then when this script was sort of ready to go, James asked me to come on board as a producer as well, and there was so much within the story that I just felt was really important and that I wanted to be a part of, and it was so well written, and I was really wanting to work with James, so it was kind of a no-brainer, really.
Cool.
Yeah, I think I got sent the script and I just absolutely fell in love with it, and I got very protective over the character of Sarah, and yeah, it's just the human nature behind it. It just felt so human and relatable, like the whole story, and yeah, I just completely fell in love with it, and I basically begged James to let me audition and let me be a part of it, and yeah, thrilled that I was.
Awesome.
I think also just the nature of sisterhood in itself. I have an older sister. We're incredibly close, and the one thing that I've sort of seen time and time again in film is sort of the big brother, little brother whole thing, and not so much the sorority, the kind of sisterhood side. And how girls, like the connection that they have, it was just something that I haven't really seen on screen. So it felt like a great time, to make something which I think, whether or not you have siblings, just seeing a different side of siblingship was just something that was really great.
Awesome. And what was it for you, James? I mean, like writing it with the impetus of writing and directing it.
I think the story of the film has been in my head for a long time. I mean, I found like little bits and pieces, kind of a short film that was basically, I think, the start of this idea. It was like back in 2004 or somewhere. I mean, what it's become is much different, but it's something that I wanted to explore for a long time, to make a film about simply the relationship between women, not just sisters, but also, with the mother-daughter relationship as well. It was just something I was very keen to explore. And it really kind of evolved over time. Actually, that first short film script back in the day was actually a comedy, which is kind of mad now because the film, well, that has some funny moments, is pretty serious. But it just kind of evolved over time. I mean, I grew up in a household with, when I was young, I lived in the same house as my mum, my grandmother, and my great-grandmother, which I always thought is just quite a rare thing, and you would see that relationship between those generations of women, which, they were funny, complicated, sarcastic, occasionally broken, occasionally not. They were interesting people, and that dynamic, I think, just always stuck with me, and I wanted to sort of replicate that on screen.
Cool, brilliant. So, how do you relate to Sarah and Harriet, Sophie and Emily? How do you relate to them?
I think for me the big thing, I mean, I had to kind of start with sort of the easy things to relate to, because obviously a rather large part of what she goes through is the loss of a child, which is something that I have never and hope to never experience. I do know people who have gone through that, and it is incredibly, well, it's beyond words, it's harrowing. So, you know, I kind of, you know, that how headstrong she was as a person, how protective she was of her sibling, and you know, how she wanted to really make something of herself and get out of a small town, you know, and her situation. And these, you know, are things that I kind of could find myself relating to then be able to do the impossible, which is try to replicate or show loss. But, you know, her wit as well is something that I really warmed to. And I think everything that James just said about the kind of wonderful and crazy and, you know, broken sometimes, not broken sometimes, complexities of women, you know, as an actor, you kind of have to latch on to what you know, and then sort of try to use your powers as an actor to then do the things that you don't. But he gave her so much of a personality that I could connect to, that, you know, with his guidance as a director, I found it, you know, a possible job, you know, to try and do something which is very difficult.
For you,
Yeah, Sarah was just a character that I just can relate to so much. There's a lot of experiences that she's been through that I haven't been through those exact experiences, but I've been through situations very similar to them. And just the way that she observes everyone, I'm a big observer as well, and the way she writes about her experiences is something else that I can massively relate to. And even though I don't have a sister, I have, like, family is such an important part of my life anyway, so to have that kind of theme throughout this film was just something that really touched me and was so relatable as well. And I'm very similar to her, and what I loved about her was the fact of she's very smart and she's very, like I said, observant, and she's kind of on the cusp of finding out who she is. And I think everyone's kind of been in those situations where you're kind of just about becoming independent, you're just about figuring out who you actually are. And I think that's something that I can kind of relate to massively, and I think everyone can. So kind of having that connection with her it was just such a strong connection. I love her character completely.
Awesome. Now, obviously, Sorority being about sisterhood, and the chemistry of you two is impeccable. It really is. It's. I mean, the film doesn't work without those central performances. Were you friends and beforehand, or was it like a trial by fire, just to meet on set and then just have an instant bond?
Well, the kind of amazing, like James, it was my first time being on the other side of casting. So, you know, obviously as an actress, you know, I've been to a fair few, and you never quite know what it is sometimes, if it's just a look you give or the way you might like scratch your head or something that like springs out to the casting director or director where they're like, that's your girl. But we went through a whole session of casting, and then James brought Emily in, and it just was like, oh shit, I get it. It's quite immediate when you know someone's right for it. And that's almost terrifying also as an actor, to kind of see how it just is like a green light moment. And from that point on, you know, James was kind of adamant of just sort of throwing us together and doing scenes, and we did rehearsals, and it all came very naturally. And I think like a lot on James, because James, knowing Emily better than I did, knew that there would be that chemistry. So, you know, I hand that then over to James in that respect.
Yeah, I think the film sort of lived and died completely by you guys. And I always sort of felt like we could have, even if we cast two, you know, incredible actors in those roles, if they're just if they don't gel, then it doesn't matter. Like it won't work. So I think it was really important to get that, and it was really exciting to see you guys just sort of quite effortlessly on camera have that camaraderie, which it was so important to the film.
Yeah, because it's like that, you know, the thing that I think is so important within the casting process as well is just like, you, as you say, James, you can get two really good actors, but if it's just not there, it's not there. And when it is there, it makes your job as an actor 10 times easier, because, you know, you can act your socks off and you can get a good performance, but when there's actually a kind of spark, you know, I guess it's why people do chemistry tests.
Yeah.
This is exactly really that groundbreaking what I'm saying right now. But you know, I just felt like, just from the minute we started rehearsing, we just felt like we had like a way between us of communicating without having to spell it out, which then made like on the day performing just really enjoyable, no matter what the content of the scene was, you know.
And also Emily did something which was an absolute masterstroke, where she turned up for the rehearsals with a bottle of whiskey, which, you know, that is going to endear you to someone, I think, you know. And from that point on, like, my job was done. Like, I didn't have to do anything. I was like, Emily is a genius. What a
bottle of whiskey, I would have been an alcoholic, but Emily turns up and it's like the golden ticket.
I would like to point out, we drank the whiskey after the rehearsals. It wasn't beforehand, it was afterwards. Just going to put that out there.
Of course, you know, we're professional filmmakers.
Too much.
So obviously with the camaraderie between you two, what was the atmosphere like on set when the cameras weren't rolling?
I mean, there was a lot of jokes. Like the thing is it was also one of those sets where like we you know, James and I managed to knit together like such a great crew that we finished quite early some days. Like it just seemed like everyone was really working together, and like there was a lot of laughter, I remember, and a lot of people that liked being around each other every day, which is just like feeling like the coolest gang of like sort of misfit toys in a way. It's just like everyone just really enjoys doing it. That's what I recall.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because it's quite an emotionally intense film in places, but sort of making it wasn't, you know, it was good fun. Like, we would do some quite intense scenes and then we would be able to have a bit of a laugh and sort of enjoy ourselves, and that was really, really great. I think we, like Sophie said, we worked really hard to get the right people on the film, you know, not just the best people for the job, but people that you feel that you can work with and share your same sensibilities. And yeah, I mean, we had a blast. It was a really good time. I mean, I think as for a first feature, especially on a micro budget, you sort of prepare yourself for it to be a bit of a slog, and you're going to constantly have wild cards thrown at you on a daily basis. And yeah, of course, there's going to be some. That's the same with any film, probably at any budget. But overall, it was, you know, it was pretty good, and had a good time doing it as well. So yeah, it was the best of both worlds.
Yeah, everyone was, you know, within some of like the more intense scenes. I felt like everyone knew the content of them. Yeah. Everyone joined because they loved the script, you know, and were very respectful and silent when they needed to be. and then also able to pick you up and get you into the next scene, because obviously, you know, film isn't shot in order, so you can go from one, you know, potentially really difficult scene to something which is quite light-hearted, and I felt like everyone sort of carried each other in a really positive way.
Yeah, I think the cast and crew were just so welcoming and open as well. Like, obviously we're doing these very intense scenes and you're being quite vulnerable in front of a complete room of strangers, but because I think just the first day on set, just how everyone interacted with each other, it felt like everyone kind of knew each other for years. It was very bizarre, but in the best possible way. And I feel like people just connected really quickly, and that's definitely down to James picking the right people behind the camera, because when you're having to be so vulnerable, I don't know if this is like for you, Sophie, but when you're being so vulnerable, it helps to know the people behind the camera and know that they're kind of supportive of you as well.
Yeah.
So it was really important. And like I said, the first day was just so much fun, and it was just so welcoming. It was really nice.
Yeah, that's so lovely to hear. It's nice. It's just nice.
Awesome. Do you have any memories and challenges from set that will stick with you throughout your careers?
I don't like this silence. I'm going to let Emily answer that first, because she put her hands up over her face, so I know she's got something great to say.
Oh, I really don't. It was just it's filming with planes, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
Was a very interesting challenge, and I think it's one that you definitely need to overcome. And
You're just gonna leave it in need. I was like, I'm listening.
And no, it was that just made me chuckle. There was just some moments where it just kind of, I think it got to everyone, and now it's a feature in the film, which is just amazing. And I'll let James explain that.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we shot the film actually in my house that I'm sitting in. That is the sister's home in the film, and it's right under the flight path of Heathrow, which is interesting for sound. But the short film was also shot here, which the feature is based on, Sorority. And I've always been interested about the fact of people living under a flight path. When you don't really hear the planes until you actually need to do some filming, and then you really do hear them a lot. But there's this sort of thing I think sometimes if you're not in a good place or whatever, hearing people traveling all over the world above your head constantly can, it has a bit of an effect. And it's something that Sophie's character alludes to in the film. So it's really important to make the plane noise a part of the film. Occasionally, though, the plane noise was a bit too much a part of the film. I think there was one day in particular, a day where Kate Dickie was on set, and we were trying to do this really emotional scene. And I mean, I've lived here for many, many years, and I've shot many things in the area, and we've always managed to get around the plane problem. That day, it was wall-to-wall planes. I don't know what was going on. Yeah, it was just constant, and it became clear we simply were not going to get the scene the way it was intended to be outside. So we moved it inside and had to sort of improvise a new sort of way to approach the scene, which at the time I was a bit, I didn't feel too cool about that, because you write it, it's been on the page, you visualize it in a certain way. So to suddenly change everything at the last minute, you feel, it's horrible doing stuff for technical reasons rather than story-driven reasons. But actually, I think by a blind bit of luck, it turns out better than it's in a house, and the scene's probably stronger because of it. So it worked in our favor, but I would be reluctant to, for instance, if there's ever a Sorority 2, it won't be anywhere near an airport. It'll be in the middle of nowhere. You can hear a pin drop. Yeah.
But I think, you know, like when you say, is there anything that is like memorable? I think, you know, there are things on every set where I don't know, part of the fun that I've found on being on sets for a number of years now is how like problem solving has to like kick into action, and everyone wants the positive outcome, and there's something really lovely in like a team sort of way of how to get this done in the slickest, best way for everyone, for performance, for sound, for crew, you know. And I think when, you know, what I will carry with me for the rest, you know, when you do make, you know, a kind of micro budget film, is that when you can have people so willing to want to do their job to the best of their ability, that everyone's working together, you want that on every size of set, you know.
And it's a buzz, isn't it, when you sort of get to overcome the problems and move on from that. It affects everyone. You all sort of get this, you know, we had something thrown at us and we all work together to overcome it, and it's sort of a good feeling. I think after, you know, speaking to a lot of director friends who had sort of been there before me, I made sure I talked to a lot of people and just to get their 2 cents and see what their experience of making a film was. And, you know, I heard some stories. I heard some really, I was like, geez, I hope that doesn't happen to us, you know, just completely unforeseen circumstances that can really test a production. We didn't really have much of that. We were quite lucky in some ways, either lucky or, I mean, we worked very hard in pre-production and sort of planning everything to an inch of its life. And I think that helps as well. I think pre-production is probably the most underrated part of the production process, because you get that right and everything else, for the most part, should fall into place.
Something like a good old shot list.
Oh, I love shot lists.
He loves a shot list.
Excellent. All right. Now, you've assembled a fantastic supporting cast from Kate Dickie to Sam Gittins. What would they like to work with, as well as the fresh faces like Grace Blackman that you've also got in the film?
Yeah. Sam's a nightmare. He's an absolute nightmare. No, I've worked with Sam for years. I gave him his first IMDb credit back in the day on a short film. So he's sort of tied to me now for the rest of his life, whether he wants to be or not. Yeah, he's fantastic. I've worked with him loads, and it was kind of a no-brainer that he would be in a first feature of mine. It was, you know, it was a good role for him as well. You know, I think he really sort of approached it with a degree of trepidation, because it was sort of going into some new territory for him as an actor. And that's really good, because I think that's the right way to approach it for that character. He sort of goes through some pretty difficult things. Yeah, and it was just great working with Sam. He's always a blast to have on set, and yeah. Kate Dickie as well. I'd worked with Kate on the short film version of the feature, and I mean, we haven't got enough time for me to go into how great Kate Dickie is. She's one of my favorite actresses. You know, to get to work with her on the short film was kind of a bit of a coup, I thought, because it was a supporting role in this short film, and she's like a double BAFTA winner. Then she's such a lovely person on set, and she's just the kind of person, if you ever met someone and said, I don't like Kate Dickie, she's a nutter, there's something wrong with them. You know, she's just, crews love her, and other actors love her because she's very giving as a performer, and just yeah, I can't say anything more about how great she is. It's just so good.
I'm actually just quite surprised you didn't say great.
I shied away from that. Because you're Scottish and you might come and get me.
Yeah, I mean, Sam played. Sam is now like my on-set boyfriend. He was my boyfriend in Obey, and I would quite happily have Sam as my boyfriend on film forevermore. He is just such he's just lovely to have around. Same with Kate. They're just such giving actors. They care so much about what they do, who they're around, the space they're in, their other actor, and I just. I can only just back up what James said. They are just truly remarkable at what they do, and just lovely people that you would hope to be friends with.
It almost seems cliche, doesn't it? The sort of people talking about the people they work with on the film and how great and wonderful and they're lovely people. It's really annoying because they are actually those things. So, I'd love to sort of break the mold and go, oh, they're a nightmare to work with. Good performance, but my God.
The characters you cast them in are so different to their personalities.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what's amazing.
But they both surprised me with the way they played it. I kind of stereotyped both his characters in my head, and then seeing Sam give his performance really got to me because I just stereotyped him. And the same with Kate. I imagined her to play it one way that she actually made me cry with the way that she performed her bit, because I was expecting her to be a completely different way with me. And it was kind of, I mean, I won't lie, it was intimidating acting with Sophie, Kate and Sam, because they're all absolutely so incredibly talented, and I'm just there staring at them going, I hope this is okay. I hope this will be fine.
You're great. Oh my God, we all just love each other so much.
Oh.
That's great. So are there any genres that you haven't done yet that you'd like to?
I mean, I don't know. I am quite keen to sort of explore other stuff. Maybe science fiction is something that I would really enjoy doing. Maybe even fantasy. I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. Maybe I could do the remake. That's a joke. No one touched that. Although Amazon are at the moment for a TV series, but that's fine. Either of those would be pretty cool. Yeah.
Cool. Ladies?
Oh, sorry. I thought that was for the director. Sorry. Genre. Emily, you go.
Oh, crumbs.
Wrong.
I haven't really done comedy that much, so maybe doing some of that, but I'm not really funny, so that probably wouldn't go well. I don't know, I kind of just like seeing what kind of really comes to me, really, because I read so many different scripts, and I feel like the variation's actually getting a lot more now that I'm older. I think I've been kind of typecast in the past to play certain roles, so it's kind of always interesting to see what people kind of think that I'd be right for. So I just enjoy doing that.
I've always been slightly terrified of period dramas, but mainly because my mother's always like, but Sophie, you look so nice in a bonnet. And then when you do movies like Nymphomaniac and stuff, and it's obviously devastating to your lovely doting Scottish parents.
Nymphomaniacs is far removed from like Jane Austen.
Listen,
yeah.
Okay, it was set in the 70s, that's technically, but like, I, say something, but something kind of that mixes something a bit like The Favourite, which is sort of like some batshit comedy, but period drama. Because I feel, something along those lines would be, I think it's not so much like a genre I'd like to do. I think it would be like a really cause I love such like real gritty, quite indie stuff. And so I think a kind of genre that I would find quite challenging would be something very period, which I would find interesting. I've been really fortunate so far to have kind of ticked a few genre boxes. Have I done sci-fi? I don't know if I have.
In short film, I think, yeah.
Oh God, yes, I have. Yeah, I mean Black Mirror. No, that wasn't sci. No, that one wasn't really sci-fi. It's got sci-fi.
Sophie's like, I've done every genre possible.
I haven't done every genre possible. I was just trying to think of something that would be new and like quite difficult and quite challenging.
Musical.
Oh, no one needs to hear me sing. Yeah. Genre's quite a difficult question, I don't know.
Okay. So are there any other aspects of the film industry that you like to pursue? Because obviously you're all like producers as well, like say you're like in front of the camera as well as behind. But are there any other aspects that you'd like to pursue?
I think for me, no, not really. I think if I did anything else, it would be a bit of a disaster. Maybe I should act.
I was about to say, James, let's get you in front of the lens.
You guys direct me, and Fraternity. Sam Gittins can be my younger brother. There we go. Next project.
I mean, I've been writing quite a bit during lockdown. I've been trying not to procrastinate too much, and I've started producing on my next thing. But I'd really love to get to a point of directing, but I'm not quite there yet. I think I still have a bit more time to put in learning through producing and stuff for me to jump completely into the director's seat. I also kind of feel like, you know, these days, I mean, I might be wrong by saying this is just like my own sort of feeling, is like I would like to direct what I write to start with, and then maybe move on to what someone else has written. But I'm sort of a bit of a way off of that at the minute.
Okay. Mother?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to focus mainly on acting, but I mean, I've always enjoyed producing and writing. I directed a couple of times, but I think I prefer producing and writing, I think, to just directing. But acting's kind of the one thing that I'm mainly trying to do, and I've just obviously got a short film that I managed to finish producing during lockdown, and that's now doing the festival run, and trying to do that during COVID was an interesting time. So I think I'm just trying to focus mainly on a bit more of the acting side and a bit of writing now.
Great. That's Officer Down, isn't it?
Yeah, Officer Down.
It's kind of I like, since lockdown opened up, well, the first lockdown finished at least, I did a film, and I'm about to do another one, and it's really nice that the industry, like, even though there are now so many rules, it's almost a bit like with COVID, that it's still going, and the importance of the art form of film, and why it's actually been such a cornerstone during lockdown for people to really immerse themselves in what film and television has to offer. Because I think for a lot of the other arts, it's been an incredibly scary time. It's just, there is an added challenge with COVID within making film, and just the dangers of having so many people in close quarters and stuff like that. But it's great that we've found a way to keep going and doing it.
Absolutely. So who inspires you within the industry?
That's another sweeping question. I mean, I grew up sort of respecting all of the, I think the kind of directors that most kids in the 80s, grew up with, like Spielberg and Lucas and James Cameron, all those kind of guys. I think as I've sort of got older, and my film taste has definitely changed. There are a few British directors that consistently I'm always, straight out to watch their work, and Andrew Arnold's a big one for me, which is kind of what probably an obvious choice. You know, Kate Dickie was in her first feature, Red Road, back in the day. Yeah, so she's definitely a big influence. But I've got quite wide taste. Like, it's like where someone asks you what your favorite film is. I can't answer that question. Like, it almost seems obscene to heap praise just on one single film when there are so many great films. I just simply can't do that. Even coming up with the top 10 is a nigh on impossible task for me. So yeah, there are so many people that sort of inspire me and whose work I love, and you know, I watch their films and sort of come away fired up to go off and sort of tell my stories. And I think that's sort of the best thing when you watch a film and you come away feeling inspired. That's sort of one of the best things about the creative arts.
Absolutely. And for you, Tay? Who inspires you?
I mean, who inspired? Do you know who I really love? I absolutely am just mad about Elizabeth Moss. I just absolutely love her. I love her performances. She started her own production company, and something that she's doing. I believe her in everything. I want to watch everything that she makes, and I look forward to seeing what her production company comes out with. And I think, you know, having started producing myself and also wanting to continue acting, I would say, just based on your question, she is someone who I really look to.
Great. Yeah, she's wonderful.
Yeah, I love
everything.
her so
In everything, she's wonderful.
Oh my God, she's so good. I just believe her in everything, and then I love her. I just love her. I love her. I love you, Elizabeth Moss. I'm having a moment. I didn't think I'd bring this up. Emily?
Yeah, you kind of took my one, so I'm just trying to quickly think of someone else.
You're right.
Because I mean, I love Toni Collette. I think she's absolutely brilliant, and there's just something about her. I watched Hereditary and I can't watch it again, but I'm kind of slightly obsessed with her in that film.
She's great.
But, oh, she is, and there was just something about her in that film that just felt so real and raw, and it kind of terrified me in the best possible way. So I'm kind of slightly obsessed with her, and I mean, I've always loved Catherine Bigelow as well. So just as a director, I think she's absolutely fantastic in so many different ways. But yeah, those two probably for me at the moment. Oh, and Anya Taylor-Joy, who's just incredibly, insanely talented. So I think what she's done with her career, I think, is just fantastic, and something that I kind of aspire to kind of do as well. So
Awesome. Yeah, she's great in The Queen's Gambit as well.
I haven't seen that yet. It's on my list though.
Now, obviously, the UK has entered a second lockdown, which should be up next week. How has that affected the way that you work?
I mean, we're lucky with Sorority that we shot it before everything kind of kicked off. But we were in post, and we'd locked the edit, but we were sort of doing the sound design, the music, and the grade, and it sort of meant that things had to be done. This was during the first lockdown, remotely, which isn't really the way I like to work. I like to, you know, you can't beat being in the room and sort of working with a sound designer or mixer or whatever at the speed of thoughts, you know, speed of creativity, sort of going backwards and forwards and sending each other files. It's sort of, it's a very laborious sort of process. But we made it work. We were able to mix in person, which was good, to go to a sound facility, and they had in Soho, and they had good measures in place so everyone was safe. And but you know, it was a shame because I was looking forward to that sort of process. And but you know, I think we're still working out how the film will fit into a COVID world, you know, because a lot of the things we wanted to do with Sorority probably aren't possible at the moment, certainly like with cinema and things like that. Hopefully next year, fingers crossed, things will maybe return to a degree of normalcy. But yeah, it's sort of an ever-changing situation. We were like initially trying to plan everything whilst it was all unfolding, but then it sort of became apparent that there's kind of almost no point, because to a degree, or you're planning, this happens and then this cinema chain stops running, and it's almost like it's a waste of time. You just have to sort of wait until you're in the position to actually get the film out there, and then you see what the options are open to you. But you know, it was always made to be on a big screen, so I'm hoping that we get that opportunity some point next year.
I'm sure it'd be good for drive-ins.
Yeah. I did go to a drive-in premiere for Sam Gitten's film Break.
Oh right, yeah, I was there.
Were you as well?
I was doing the interviews.
Okay, yeah, I just stayed in my car. But yeah, it was that was an experience. I've never actually done that before. I don't know if Sorority is like a drive-in film. You always sort of think about drive-in films as being, you know, quite heavily genre-based, but it worked for a break. So who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. Awesome. So is there a book that you're a fan of that hasn't been adapted to film or TV or Netflix yet that you'd love to be a part of?
Ooh. I'm gonna let you guys answer that first, whilst I have a good think.
I think Sophie wants to go first.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
A book that hasn't been adapted yet to film or TV or Netflix yet that you'd love to be a part of?
Oh, right. Yes, but I don't know if I want to say. No, it's not. No, it's not because I'm going to make it. Well, I mean, actually, it would be quite a lot of work to do. I don't.
50 Shades of Grey has been done, Sophie.
What?
50 Shades of Grey has been done.
Devo. Sorry. All respect to everyone involved. No, but seriously, all respect. What would I want to do? Emily, over to you. Let me. That's like one of those questions where I'm like, can I get back to you?
This question will continue after the news.
I do read. I hope you don't think I'm just like buying time, because I haven't like picked up a book in about 10 years.
I sort of have an answer. I mean, it's not a correct answer in some ways, because someone has beaten me to it, but I've always loved June. Always loved the book June, and just felt, you know, I've always been sort of fascinated by the David Lynch version, but it's such a great book. And actually during lockdown, I've been rereading them, and it's mad, like the amount of stuff it's sort of influenced, and you know, from Star Wars to many other things, even Game of Thrones, you know, you can see some influences from that book. I would just absolutely love it. You know, Denis Villeneuve, I'm sure he'll knock it out of the park, but I've always felt, I was like, oh, I would imagine being in the position to be able to do an adaptation of that book, you know, with modern technology and a good budget, would be really, really special. So it's sort of an incorrect answer to your question, because not only has someone just done it, well, next year now, someone's done it before, but that's the answer you're getting, I'm afraid. I'm sorry.
That's cool.
Something, but it's not like maybe like right, but no, there's no right or wrong answer. Hold on. So I really loved Holy Motors, right? And I read a lot of short stories, and I love that kind of sort of collection that with sort of a thread through it. So like, I think because I think with reading, you know, a lot of scripts or having to learn a lot of lines, it can actually be quite difficult sometimes to feel like you want to just like pick up a book all the time. But that's so short stories has always been sort of my go-to when I go to like a little secondhand book shop or something like that. And I loved Holy Motors.
Such a mad film.
It's so nuts. You never know what's going to happen.
Kylie Minogue. Wow.
It's so wild. Emily, if you haven't seen Holy Motors, it's just, oh, it's genius. So yeah, I think I kind of really, I sort of really enjoyed that. And there's been a couple of short stories that I've read recently that I think would be fun to make into a full feature.
Awesome.
Thanks. Over to you, Emily.
And this is why we love Sophie. So see, mine's a kid's storybook, so I feel like I've gone to the kiddie section of this talk. But I used to.
Hungry Caterpillar is a classic, Emily.
I mean, come on, who doesn't want to see that? But it's called The Lady Grace Mysteries, and they're about this girl during the I think this might be the Elizabethan period, and she basically figures out all these murders and mysteries that happen around the palace. And it starts off with the first book, which is Assassin, and it goes into Betrayal, and it's always something that kind of stuck with me, because I think when I was reading them, most people were reading like Tracy Beaker and stuff like that, whereas I was reading this like detective girl who's like 12, who's like figuring out murders in like some Elizabethan palace. And it's just something that's always stuck with me, because it's always like such a strong female character, which kind of, she was just like, I'm gonna go figure out for myself. And it's a children's book, and there's a series of books, and I absolutely love them. And I think just for children, I think they should definitely try and make it, just to kind of give them I don't know, like a historic female figure. I don't know, I love those books. Awesome. Even as an adult.
Awesome. So with the popularity of streaming services like Netflix, what do you think the future of cinema is?
I hope it includes cinema, you know, actual cinemas. Can you imagine us talking about cinema and you can't actually go to the cinema? It's quite a sad, I don't know, it's quite a sad thing. I mean, obviously streaming is going to be the big thing, and you know, there's no way around that. People love the convenience, but you know, for me, the big screen experience is part and parcel of my love of films. One of the sort of unforeseen great things that have happened this year, almost seems a bit bizarre saying great things and this year in the same sentence, is that I've gone to the cinema a lot since the first lockdown was lifted. Our local cinema was just putting classics, you know, films, some of the films, you know, I wasn't even alive. Imagine a time where I wasn't even alive. and that I could see on the big screen for the first time. And it was great. And we were going to see films like Goodfellas and Shawshank Redemption. We saw all the Rockies, which might have been overdoing it a little bit on consecutive nights.
Show. I was like, Rocky Horror Picture Show is amazing. There's more than one.
There's quite a few more than one. Although it's actually, no, I'm not going to say anything because I made the mistake of saying something on Twitter about Rocky and I didn't realize what a sensitive subject it was. But I love Rocky. I love Rocky, just to be clear. But it was really great sort of experiencing those films on the big screen for the first time. And it'd be really sad, like, not having that for new cinema. And, you know, a lot of the big memories of film from my youth were seeing like Jurassic Park on opening day on the big screen and like feeling the dinosaurs stomping around. And you wouldn't get that on Netflix unless you had the best sound system in the entire world and the biggest screen. You know, there's something about enjoying it with an audience around you. It's all experiencing it at the same time for the first time. It's a great thing. So I hope cinemas are able to recover and they get supported and their staff get supported in any way that they need.
I think I like also though, you know, not to say that when you look at some of the positives that can come out of a really negative situation, not being like cinemas, you know, cinemas for like the last couple of years since something like Netflix have been affected. But since these lockdowns, people have really, really missed the cinema. And I think there's going to be a big surge in people wanting to go instead. I think Netflix was like a bit of like a kind of cool trend that you could just like stay at home and not have to go. But I think when you tell people that they actually can't go, they then really want. With everything that's happened, that people are really going to treasure the experience more and support their local picture houses and curzons and little indie cinemas, you know, not just the big ones, and everything that experience has to offer. As James says, you know, it's one of those things, you know, that you can have being an audience member in anything, whether it's theatre or cinema, when you feel everyone erupt with laughter or gasp or scream, you know, it's very rare that you go and sit in a dark room with a bunch of strangers and experience something for the first time. You know, cinema is like a really remarkable thing. Am I going this? No, but I really miss watching something that I've read about, heard about, looked forward to the date that it comes out and making a night surrounding that movie. And, you know, I've spent like wasted time going, what am I going to watch? And all I've done is just flicked through, whether it's Amazon Prime or Netflix. And I've spent the length of watching a movie on deciding what to watch, you know,
And video shops as well. I miss that. You know,
I don't know if they're coming back, James.
Yeah, they're not. And you can understand why. You know, they're just not viable anymore. But I worked in a Blockbuster Video for 3 years. That was my film education. You know, I watched so many films there, and it really helped introduce me to kind of more world cinema and films that, you know, my local multiplex where I grew up, you know, you have no choice but to watch whatever, you know, Hollywood is giving you that week. So actually having your eyes open to independent film and world cinema was like a big deal for me. And those 7 free rentals a week got properly used, you know.
I came across this really cool meme that I want to share with everyone. And it's of like a Blockbuster, and it says, I spent the best evenings of my life unaware they were significant.
Yeah.
And I just, what you were saying, it's like going and picking out your movie on do you know what I mean? And they were so significant, that choice that you made. And
Yeah, looking at the box and the really great feeling of watching a truly terrible film and feeling like you've been lied to.
yes.
I miss that. Because on streamers, you just look at it and you're like, oh no, it's shite. Watch something else. You know, when you've spent £3.50 of your hard-earned minimum wage on a rental, you know, yeah, there's nothing. Maybe I'm a bit weird for missing that, but yeah. Emily.
Well, I think cinemas, they're always going to be around because I think, like James has said, it's an experience. It's something, but I think people need to kind of take that into consideration, that it's not the fact that you can sit at home and it's going to be cheaper for you because you can just watch Netflix. It's an experience with your friends. It's having the time to actually go and meet someone and go to the cinema and then talk afterwards. It's a whole like evening planned for it. So I think as long as people kind of realize that it's the experience that they're missing, I think cinemas are always going to be around. They've expanded it. They do things like secret cinema and stuff like that. So there's clearly like a hunger for it because they've gone off and they've made these big sets and big costumes because people love to go there. And the one thing I do think that Amazon and Netflix have done is I think it has given people chances to watch some pretty interesting independent films. And I think it has, pardon? Movies.
Oh yeah, movies great. Yeah.
I'll give you the link. Sorry, carry on.
But I feel like you've been able to watch some films that you wouldn't have gone to the cinema to see, but people may now go to the cinema and go, actually, I hadn't heard of this film, I'm going to go and see it. And it actually might give people that make independent films a chance to actually show it at cinemas as well. Because I feel like people have been more open to the choices, because I think everyone's gone through Netflix about 50 times now during lockdown and have seen probably most of it.
I think though that, you know, for like some people that I know that have young kids, they find the cinema a very expensive experience. And therefore, you know, things like Netflix have actually been a gift because, you know, you can't take a kid to the cinema and say you can't have any sweets. Like you can't. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think a lot of people that I know who have young kids were like, I can't go and spend X amount of
Disney
money.
Plus, $5.99 a month. Disney Plus, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Sorry.
Yeah, I would have been all over that as a kid, you know.
I think there's hopefully just for all the people that went, oh, actually, it's great not to go to the cinema. You know, I think there's a kind of middle ground where, you know, it doesn't have to be so expensive, but not impossible for everyone.
Yeah, that's very true.
I just like, that's why I know a lot of my friends who were students at a time wouldn't go to the cinema. And I thought that was such a shame because they loved film. Some of them like went to film school, you know, I'm not sure. It's a kind of interesting debate, I guess.
Cool. Yeah. Now, Sophie and Emily, you're both in pandemic-inspired films with Alone and The Lockdown Hauntings, with some cinema legends. What were they like to work on? Is there anything you're allowed to talk about with them?
Sophie.
Is there anything I'm allowed to say? I don't know what I'm allowed to say. I know that it's okay. I'm trying to make this interesting because obviously what they've released, what it's about, is kind of all I know is out there. It's Alone is about basically it's based on the director's real experience of when the pandemic hit, having to basically shut down a film, and how everyone who was part of the crew was affected. And it's a collection of, you know, short films that all run together about how people were affected in different ways. And, you know, there was something that I thought was, you know, really interesting when I read it was just, we all had our own experience, and you can have empathy for other people and what they go through, but you're not them, you know. And I think the film really depicts very well. I mean, I haven't seen it yet, but all the different kinds of experiences that lots of people from all walks of life can have when a disaster hits and affects everyone. You know, there was no bias in, you know, like everyone had to go into the same situation. We shot it straight out of lockdown, so with the nature of it being about COVID, it was a very strict set, with just making sure that, you know, when you're making a film about the issue at hand, that you obviously protect everyone involved. So yeah, I look forward to seeing it. I had quite an intense character in it, so yet again. Yeah. Sorry, I've forgotten half the question.
Lockdown hauntings, I don't actually know what I can say about that, but I have a very small role in that. But it's basically kind of the fear that you kind of go through with lockdown and how things can kind of play on that as well. And yeah, I don't 100% know what I can actually say about that. But I think, James, you made one during lockdown, didn't you? You did something with Scott?
Yeah, I made it's a good link. It was a very good link. Yeah, it was basically a remote collaboration between really talented writer, filmmaker called Scott Temple, myself, and composer of Sorority, Derek Kirkup. So Scott wrote a piece about a really, really beautifully kind of a small written piece that basically encapsulated the feeling of that first lockdown. He really hit the nail on the head. So he did that, and I shot some images to sort of go along with it, and then Derek composed the music, and it was just a kind of a nice way to, you know, we weren't doing it for film festivals or, you know, we kind of did it to not only be creative during, you know, a particularly uncreative time, but it's also kind of like, I don't know, sort of marks a bit of history, you know, what was going on. You know, we'll be talking about this moment forever, and well, hopefully not forever, but and the film sort of encapsulates, you know, our experience of that lockdown. But you can watch it on Vimeo, on the Springhead Film Company Vimeo channel. Yeah.
Brilliant. Cool. And what are you hoping audiences will take away from Sorority when they get a chance to see it?
Simple answer. I hope they enjoy it. I hope that they feel something for the characters. They may be, you know, the film's sort of made, you know, for people hopefully to relate to some of the things that people have gone through, or some of the moments in the film, maybe even experienced it with their own family. Yeah, just hope that people see it, and that you know, they feel something for the characters. That's sort of my biggest hope and dream for the film.
I think there's a lot of hope and forgiveness in the film. And I think we all go through things with friends and family members in our lives where that can seem very far away for a long time. And I think the film kind of shows how that it can happen. And that in itself, I think is something that everyone will be able to relate to, even if it's not exactly the same as what's happened in their life. Yeah, I think that for me was just something that was like a big pull in the script of that you're also in control of, you know, both sisters go towards a reality that they think is going to make them happy, and along the way are able to find forgiveness with the past, really, you know? I think that's a really beautiful message for everyone to carry with them.
Absolutely is.
Sorry, this is someone in my house. Sorry.
An intruder, or hopefully someone that you know?
Quiet sneezes. Sorry.
It was such a beautiful moment, and then. But for me, I think it's the like Sophie said, the forgiveness, but also the strength in the characters, and showing kind of what you kind of go through and what you can feel kind of burdens you. You can kind of let go, and that you have the strength to kind of become who you're meant to be, and also allowing you to be okay with how things change. I find change is quite a big part of the script for me, and being okay to adapt to the change, and also to understand that it can be painful, but there's always, like Sophie and James said, the hope behind it as well. So I think if people can relate to that, and I think most people will relate to it, I think just kind of acknowledging it and realizing it within themselves would be amazing for them to kind of connect with.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me this evening. This has been great. And the film, I watched it last night, so I really enjoyed it. I really loved it. So yeah, thank you, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too.
Likewise. Thanks so much, Marc.
Take care.
Have a lovely weekend.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching The Fan Carpet. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram for more content next time.
I'm here on the largest of the Balearic Islands, Mallorca, with the turquoise waters of the Mediterranean Sea, beautiful mountainous landscape, the thriving city of Palma, quaint little market towns, a growing number of luxury hotels. It's no surprise that the likes of Audrey Hepburn and Elizabeth Taylor like to holiday here. So come and join me as I take you round Mallorca.
Thank you for watching The Fan Carpet. If you like this video, be sure to click that thumbs up button at the bottom of your screen. And also be sure to subscribe to the Fan Carpet YouTube channels. They're absolutely free and so much fun too. Be sure to check out the official website, thefancarpet.com. Also, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay up to date with reviews, competitions, the latest news, and so much more.